Now I have with me on stage Anniina Kristinsson. You are the Senior Manager of Nordic Sustainability. And you are going to talk about something that I know many people are excited about. Some people are excited, some people are scared, some people are confused. It's really about all those regulations and the reporting systems. And I was thinking, should I say all the acronyms? But I'm thinking I'm going to let that to you and the experts that you're going to have up here for the afternoon to really drive the session. So good luck.
Thank you, Cecilia, for that introduction. And hello, everyone. It's so lovely to be here with you in Gothenburg. As Cecilia already introduced me, my name is Anniina Kristinsson, and I work for a Danish sustainability strategy consultancy, Nordic Sustainability, specializing in a lot of the new EU regulation that's coming our way very, very fast. I'll introduce a little bit more what we do and also why I'm here. But let's first look at the program for this session. All right, we're going to kick the session off with a short introduction to the theme. So I'll speak for the next 10 minutes or so. Then we'll have some guest speakers. We have first a slot on the CSRD and the ESRS. If you're not familiar with these acronyms yet, after today they will just roll off your tongue like water, I promise. Well, we have Wim Basos from Deloitte and Anne Gelgo from Pandora, who will join us and share their expertise on this topic. Followed by that, we have another session on the CSDDD, another great acronym that you can carry with you after today. I'll just keep the suspense for a while and not tell you what they stand for, because, the trick is to keep the audience engaged, I've learned. There we'll have Rachel Davis, Vice President and Co-founder from Shift, Theo Jackel, Director for Business and Human Rights, Ericsson, and after that, you take a little break, wipe the sweat off your forehead, have a little Swedish fika, and then we round the session off with the EU Taxonomy, where we have Josefin Borg from Ramboll and Camilla Golbeck-Löwe from Epiroc, who will share their experiences and expertise with the EU Taxonomy. Last but not least, we'll have Bernard Frey from the UN Global Compact, who will speak to how does all of this now relate to the communication on progress that the UN Global Compact members also work with. Then we'll have a little interactivity, and of course throughout this session, please do note down your questions, ask the experts, engage with them. We'll be moving through these pretty complex topics pretty fast, also to, not lull you to sleep here right after lunch, but just to say, write down your question and make sure to ask it when we come to the Q&A session after each of these 3 blocks. Okay, who's excited about EU regulation? Hey! Okay, one more time. Who's excited about EU regulation? Come on! Hey! Okay, fine. You're. I think maybe that's the maximum we can reach right now. My husband actually joked and said to me, like, "You're going to go there and speak about what?" And I just was excitedly explaining about this, and he was like, "Oh, okay. It's good that there's people who find every topic exciting." So, yeah. Let's move along. So, I'll give you a short intro to these 3 topics. It's going to be high level. We have the experts who go a little bit in depth to each of them, but just kind of to paint the landscape for you a little bit. What is it we're talking about? I already said a little bit about who I am. Just 2 more words on that. I've spent most of my career so far on policy development, in particular in the Nordic collaboration between the Nordic governments, and then 3 years ago shifted over to the private sector, where for 2 years was in a Danish corporation, and now since March as a consultant. And it's really an exciting space to be working in, because there's so much now happening on the policy side of things that really directly affects corporates. So I feel like, at least from my perspective, this is the time when if you have a policy toolbox and a company toolbox, that's when you really can start making some changes. Our consultancy specializes on larger strategy processes. So even though we're a small firm, only 20 people strong in Copenhagen, we actually work with a lot of the big companies in the Nordics and Europe, mainly focused on strategy, but things are also moving really fast now in the materiality space, and we see a lot requirement also coming from companies to help them with materiality. So we've also started doing more and more ESRS-based materiality assessments with companies, which I'll speak a bit more about as well. So what's happening right now? We really see the landscape shifting very, very fast. And you could even say that the compliance line is very quickly moving. So even the companies that are perhaps considered sustainability leaders today, even they need to take a massive step forward to reach the new compliance line that's going to be triggered by these new initiatives. And of course, even more steps to reach the actual strategic goals that they have. And the advice we try to give to a lot of our clients is to try to have that end goal in mind. What is it actually you as a company are aiming to reach? Is it your 1.5 degree net zero target? Is it something on your positive contribution? Because if you have the right strategy in place, the rest will follow. But you of course need to understand what that strategy now will need to entail also in light of these new requirements. But the landscape is shifting and the compliance line, it's moving. Okay, this is the heaviest slide I have, so just bear with me. The exciting task I got from UN Global Compact Sweden was to try and summarize these three frameworks in an understandable way. And you know, I'm always up for a challenge, so I said, sure, I'll do that. Of course, you'll have the experts to dig deeper, but here's my attempt to systematize some of this. So we have three key directives we're talking about today. There's a lot more happening in the EU legislative landscape triggered by the EU Green Deal. But these three at least are central now for what companies need to start preparing for right now in terms of their reporting as well. So first of all, we have the EU Taxonomy. Its aim is really to, based on your business activities, classify what actions can be considered sustainable, which of your business activities can actually be seen as contributing to sustainability. Currently, the taxonomy covers topics within climate, but very soon, more environmental themes will follow. Water, marine, circular economy, pollution prevention, protection, restoration of biodiversity, potentially even something down the road on social taxonomy. Then we have the ESRS, the European Sustainability Reporting Standards, which are a part of the mothership CSRD, the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive. This will probably become the backbone of companies' sustainability reporting in Europe moving forward. Here's where you define your impacts, your risks and opportunities as a company, and you need to do it across a lot of different areas. Of course, the ESRS is only now being finalized. So EFRAG, which is the institution behind making these draft standards, is in the process of finalizing and is going to hand it over to the European Commission here in November. So this is based on the draft standards that were published in April. And we already know some things will change. But essentially, it covers a lot more themes than companies currently report on or have strategic ambitions on. We have climate change, which is by now probably familiar for most companies. But we also have more focus on pollution, water and marine resources. We have circular economy again. In the social space, there's focus both on own workforce and the value chain workforce, affected communities, consumers and end users, and also governance requirements. What's pretty unique, at least about the draft versions of the ESRS, is that it goes much deeper into the value chain than what we've seen these type of standards do before. And it also has elements of, or a central element is the double materiality concept. You'll hear more about that later today. But it basically, if you would kind of digest one thing out of it is far more ambitious than anything we've seen so far in the reporting space. Of course, things can develop and change before they're finally approved. But here you need to pay really close attention because this is coming very fast to a lot of companies in Europe. Finally, we have the Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive, or the CSDDD, as those who are familiar with it say, which addresses a lot of the same themes that the two previous ones, but really brings also the liability perspective into play in a whole new way. So if you don't have due diligence processes to manage your most relevant impacts, there will be implications, at least if the CSDD is implemented as it is today. Here we will also have some experts who will explain a little bit more what this means also for liability at board level, for example. And of course, there's still a lot of uncertainties also in terms of how will this actually be rolled out in the end. Okay. Also an attempt to try and see how these connect. Of course, trying to create a simple visual for three things that are so complex is never an easy task, but here's our attempt. As I said, the ESRS could be viewed as the backbone of future sustainability reporting. And it is so comprehensive, it is in its nature, that if you take a point of departure from the impact lists and the risk approach that ESRS has, you're pretty well covered. However, it does also link to the taxonomy, which of course also is a legal requirement for companies to work with. And there's an actual concrete link between the ESRS and the taxonomy. So when you ever find yourself in lack of a medium to heavy read, I recommend going through these standard documents and actually line by line checking, here's the link to the taxonomy, because it's there, it's clear, and it's also, you know, of course, maybe not something you want to do every day to trawl through these documents, but at some point in time, I think every company needs to have that awareness and either, you know, sit down and actually understand what are the requirements and how do they link, or have someone help and advise them on that. Then we have the CSDD. Now, there's also a clear link between the ESRS and the CSDD, because of course in the ESRS you identify your impacts, risks and opportunities. The CSDDD talks about the diligence element and how do you actually diligently have processes in play for these impacts and how are they anchored in your business. And there's a link between the taxonomy and the CSDD, because you can't have your activities classified as taxonomy aligned without them also living up to some minimum safeguards that are established here in the CSDD. Okay, are you confused yet? A little, okay, that's fair, it's fair. Also maybe worthwhile mentioning is it's possible to make sense of this landscape, and it's possible to show how these are connected. But also the EU machinery is of course a pretty significant beast, and there's different parts of the EU machinery preparing these different regulation, and not all of it is that well aligned. So there's also discrepancies, and there's a need, if you ask me, also for more coherence even, for companies to really understand what it is I actually need to do to live up to all of these new requirements that are coming my way. But again, if there's one thing for you to remember is ESRS is very comprehensive in terms of its impact descriptions. If you take a point of departure in that, you're also starting to automatically work with the taxonomy questions, and the requirements on how to work with CSDDD are also linked. It's not enough to only do ESRS, of course not, but it serves as maybe a focal point for a lot of the things that are now being pushed out into the actual implementation phase. All right, this is my final slide before we have the experts come on and speak and share their points of view. I'm speaking with a lot of companies these days on these implications and what does this actually mean for them. And I hear a lot of this. This is too difficult. This is just killing the enthusiasm in my organization. We will never be able to do this. We don't have the resources. We're a small sustainability department in my company. We're maybe 1 or 2 people. How are we going to live up to this? Or my company is too far behind. There's just not a chance that we will be able to understand our impacts, map them based on data, describe them, report on them, have standards, policies, targets in place, and everything that's actually going to be required fairly soon. So it's understandable that it's pretty overwhelming, and it's understandable that it's tricky, because it is. And even us who try and work with this on a daily basis and try to make it understandable recognize that it's tricky, and things keep changing. Now, there's also a positive narrative, and some of this I hope you can take with you also when you travel back home and to your companies. And these are also things we hear from our engagements with some of our clients. Others are already doing this, so probably we can figure it out as well. Here today you'll hear from Pandora, Epiroc and Ericsson, who will share some of their experiences working with these concepts. Hopefully they can inspire you as well and have you get a sense of okay, others are actually able to work with this as well. And then a key point. This is actually the first time your area gets legal leverage as a sustainability department. So because that compliance line is moving, it's now starting to encompass things that previously have not been maybe the point that sustainability departments can push in internal negotiations for resources. But now you do get legal leverage. These requirements are going to come your way. As a company, you need to comply, and that legal leverage does mean something when you compete for resources internally or for the attention from the board or C-suite. And finally, you can use this to catalyze change. So it doesn't have to be only a tick-the-box exercise. You can actually use this to push for new things onto the agenda and to improve your current strategies and to drive change.